October 26, 2019. The 2019 season continues to be the year of the road team. Road teams went 9-4-1 against the spread ATS last week, and have had a winning ATS record every week this season. They are also 5-9-4-7-1 overall this season, including Thursday's game. There has not been an NFL season where road teams had a winning record since 1968. For most of the year, road underdogs have been the story, and they are still hitting at a 64% rate, 4-5-2-5-2. But last week, the road favorites went 5-1 ATS and won all 6 games outright. Home dogs are now just 7-2-6-1 outright this season. This week, one trend to watch involves road teams coming off a bye. Since 2012, those teams are 4-7-2-9-2 ATS. That trend applies to Tampa Bay, Carolina and Cleveland. New York Giants at Detroit Lions, -6.51 p.m. Pat Shurmur is 8-3 ATS on the road as New York's head coach. 8 of the 11 games went over the total, including each of the past 5. Panel, Week 9 NFL Best Bets. Stanford Steve Bear, Week 9 CFB Info Panel, Week 9 CFB Best Bets NFL, Week 8 Lines to Grab NOW CFB, Week 9 Early Betting Luck Pick Center, NFL, CFB. Matt Patricia is 5-0 ATS against teams that entered the game with a losing record. Since 2014, Detroit is the 2nd of November 22 ATS against teams with losing records. Detroit is the 2nd of August 14 ATS as a home favorite since 2014. This snaps a streak of 7 straight home games not being a favorite. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tennessee Titans, -2.51 p.m. Jameis Winston is 9-1-7-1 ATS in his career when the spread is between 3 and -3, including 2-1-0-1 ATS since the start of 2017. He's lost 10 of the past 11 such games outright. Tennessee is 0-4-1 ATS this season when the line is between 3 and -3. The only time it pushed was last week when the Los Angeles Chargers fumbled at the 1-yard line down by 3 with under a minute left. Over the past 5 seasons, Tennessee is the first of April 12 ATS in non-conference games. Los Angeles Chargers at Chicago Bears, -3.51 p.m. Philip Rivers is 3-0-1-4-1 ATS in his career as a road underdog of at least 3 points, including 6-3-2 ATS since the franchise moved to Los Angeles. Since the start of last season, Los Angeles is 9-3-1 ATS on the road, 4-2 ATS in games starting at 1 p.m. including playoffs. Over the past 10 seasons, Los Angeles is the 1st of January 10 ATS when the total is under 42. Philip Rivers is 1-9-1-3-1 ATS in his career when the total is that low. Mitchell Trubisky is 9-3 ATS against teams that entered the game with a losing record. Seattle Seahawks, NL, at Atlanta Falcons, 1 p.m. Atlanta has failed to cover 5 straight games and is now 6-17 ATS over the past 2 seasons, the worst record in the NFL. It is 2-7 ATS as an underdog in that span, 1-4 this season. While Atlanta has struggled against the number, it is 1-0 ATS this season against teams that entered with a winning record. Philadelphia, and 0-6 ATS in all other games. Seattle is 8-1 ATS in its past 9 road games including the playoffs, and the only time it didn't cover was by 1 point. 6 of the past 7 of those games have gone over the total. New York Jets at Jacksonville Jaguars, -6.51 p.m. Adam Gase is 4-13 ATS in his career as a road underdog of at least 5 points, 1-16 Sioux. New York is 0-4 ATS this season when the game goes under the total and 2-0 ATS when the game goes over the total. Sam Darnold is 5-1-0-1 ATS in his career as a starter, including 2-5 ATS on the road. Gardner Minshew too is 3-0 ATS against teams that entered the game with losing records. Philadelphia Eagles at Buffalo Bills, -1.51 p.m. Since the start of 2017, Philadelphia is 9-7 SU as an underdog, 10-6 ATS, including playoffs. Doug Peterson is 12-7 SU and ATS as an underdog of 4 or fewer points. The under is 12-5 and Josh Allen starts. Josh Allen is 5-0 SU and 4-1 ATS in games where the line is between 3 and -3. Cincinnati Bengals vs. Los Angeles Rams, -13, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, London. Favorites are the 1st of December 22 ATS all-time in international games, 16-10 ATS in London games. Favorites of at least 7 points are 6-1 ATS in international games. Since the start of last season, Cincinnati is 5-0 ATS as an underdog of at least 7 points, 0-5 SU. Sean McVay is 5-1 ATS as a double-digit favorite, although the only ATS loss was an outright defeat against Philadelphia last season. Arizona Cardinals at New Orleans Saints, -10, 1 p.m. Arizona is 3-0 ATS in 1 p.m. games this season. However, since 2016, Arizona is 5-13 ATS in these games. Arizona is 5-1 ATS as an underdog this season, 3-1 SU, including 3 straight outright wins. A daily sports betting, news and information show, 6-7 p.m. ESPN2, that aims to better serve the millions of sports fans who participate in sports wagering and help educate general sports fans with in-depth analysis. Watch. Bridgewater is 28-7 ATS in his career as a starter, the best mark by any quarterback in the Super Bowl era. Min. 20 starts. Drew Brees has failed to cover in 6 straight starts including the playoffs, although immediately prior to that stretch, he was 10-1 ATS in his previous 11 games. Over the past 10 seasons, New Orleans is 7-14 ATS against quarterbacks that are 10 or fewer starts into their career. Denver Broncos at Indianapolis Colts, -5.5, 1 p.m. 13 of the past 15 Denver games went under the total, including the past 3. Overall, Denver games are the 1st of May 17 to the under the past 2 seasons, the best under percentage in the NFL, dating back to his time in Baltimore. The under is 11-3 in Joe Flacco's past 14 starts. Every Indianapolis game has been decided by 7 points or fewer this season. Frank Reich is the 2nd of May 11 ATS in his past 18 games including playoffs, including 4-1 this season. Carolina Panthers at San Francisco 49ers, -5.5, 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Kyle Allen is 5-0 ATS and SU as a starter, including 3-0 as an underdog. Only 8 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era have covered each of their first 6 career starts, with Patrick Mahomes and Brian Hoyer the only 2 to do it in the past 10 seasons. Carolina is 8-2 ATS in its past 10 games against teams that entered the game with winning records and is 11-5 ATS in that spot since the start of 2017. Kyle Shanahan is 2-6-1 ATS as a favorite in his career, 1-2 ATS this season. Oakland Raiders at Houston Texans, -7, 4:25 p.m. Oakland is one of 2 teams to be an underdog in every game this season. Miami. The point spread has yet to matter, as Oakland won 3 games outright and failed to cover in any of its 3 losses. Since 2012, Oakland is 1-0, 2-0-1 ATS in non-conference games. Over the past 3 seasons, the under is 8-2 in Oakland games when the total is at least 50 and the Raiders are 3-7 ATS in those games. Houston is 4-0 ATS in the Bill O'Brien era when the total is at least 50. Cleveland Browns at New England Patriots, -12.5, 4:25 p.m. Road underdogs coming off a bye are 4-7-2-9-2 ATS since 2012. New England has 9-2 ATS in its past 11 games including playoffs. New England is 28-0 at home, 18-10 ATS against quarterbacks under the age of 25 since 2001, the start of the Tom Brady era. New England has 21 straight games against quarterbacks in their first 2 seasons, the longest streak in NFL history according to the Elias Sports Bureau. 12-8 ATS. Green Bay Packers, -3.5 at Kansas City Chiefs, 8:20 p.m. Andy Reid is the 2nd of November 17 ATS as an underdog as Chiefs head coach. Andy Reid is 15-8 ATS in his career in the regular season with at least 10 days between games. Matt Moore is the 1st of November 19 ATS in his career as a starter, although he is 2-4 ATS in 6 starts since 2016. Prior to that, he had not started a game since 2011. Kansas City is 3-7 ATS in its past 10 home games. The under is 3-4, 2-0-1 in Kansas City home games in the Andy Reid era and 17-4 in primetime games this season. Miami Dolphins at Pittsburgh Steelers, -13.5, Monday, 8:15 p.m. ESPN. Over the last 25 seasons, teams with 0-3 or worse records are 12-4 ATS in Monday games, 8-8 outright. Ryan Fitzpatrick is 1-6-1 ATS in his past 8 starts. Mike Tomlin is 9-18 ATS as a double-digit favorite, including 0-5 since 2017. Over the past 30 seasons, teams with .333 or lower winning percentages are 2-7 ATS as double-digit favorites in October or later, 5-4 outright. Mason Rudolph is the first player to be favored by at least 14 points in one of his first 4 career starts since Elvis Grbac was favored